Why, hello there. Didn't see you there. Welcome to today's episode of Let's Talk Anime, episode 20. Don't even ask me what that intro is. I'm just in one of those moods after watching Umaru-chan and discussing it last episode. But I have 3 more topics to discuss in today's episode, and it's probably going to be a lot shorter of a video because there's much less that I can talk about in today's episode, and I will get into that. And to start, I am going to be discussing Fairy Tail. Now, like I mentioned last episode, with Umaru-chan being one of those shows that I hear everybody talking about, Fairy Tail's another one of those. And honestly, I watched the first episode probably a few years ago now. I watched it and I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty interesting, and I was immediately turned off from how many episodes it is. It's basically the reason that I never kept up with shows like One Piece or Naruto. They're just so long, and about the time that I catch up, 10 more episodes take its place. But I discuss the first 2 episodes in today's video. I watched the first 2 episodes at least. I don't think I watched the 3rd episode, but regardless, Fairy Tail is basically the name of the guild that Natsu is part of. Natsu, main character, pink hair, fire, dragon, everybody names their Charizard that. Let's get that out of the way right now. The female love interest of the show is Lucy. Lucy is actually a refreshing spin on a female character, because she actually has a personality outside of "help me, main character." She can actually fend for herself, especially when she has to deal with that creep dude. I can't remember what his name is. I didn't write down his name. If you watch the first 2 episodes, you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. But basically, the first 2 episodes introduces Natsu, introduces Happy, introduces Lucy. There's this dude who's swooning every single girl with some magic ring that he has. Lucy realizes this, so she's unaffected by it. The guy with the rings basically makes her a promise that he'll help her get to this big fancy castle or whatever. There's like different guilds or whatever, and I think he promises her to get to the best one. And because she wants to get to the best one, she accepts, goes on a cruise or whatever. There's a lot of girls there. He reveals his true motives. I can't remember what he was going to do with the girls. I think, like, suck their energy away? I can't remember. I was really tired when I watched it, so my memory isn't really the best. But the things that I liked about it, I really like the soundtrack. It's got that medieval modern mix. I just love the medieval music in it. I don't know what it is. I've never really been a huge fan of like medieval mythology and stuff like that, but I really like the soundtrack. The second thing that I like is I like how they made it a creative way for Natsu being seasick, basically. And I'll explain my thought process with this. Natsu's seasick, or at least motion sick. I believe it's actually motion sickness, but they first mention it when he's on water, I think. Maybe. But immediately when I saw that, I'm thinking, oh, he's seasick? Sea is related to water. He breathes fire. I'm not sure if they meant to do that as like foreshadowing or whatever. I don't know. I'm probably totally wrong on that, but I like it that Natsu actually has something that holds him back in a way, because with all these other shonen protagonists, there's not really much that stops them. Like Goku, okay, he dies a couple of times, but he comes back and basically saves the day. Naruto, does he have a weakness? I've never watched Naruto, so you're gonna have to let me know if he does. I guess Deku's probably the most relatable alongside Natsu with that, because Deku is basically thrown into the world of heroes after getting All Might's quirk. So he's basically gotta learn to work with that. So I like how a lot of these shonen protagonists are not entirely perfect. The last thing that I like is Natsu's line in episode 2, and I'll explain the context around it. I can't remember exactly how it starts. I want to say Lucy's already on the cruise, and Natsu and Happy fly in. Happy's carrying Natsu by holding him around his tail so Natsu can fly. He comes in, and Lucy says, "Wait, if you're motion sick, how are you fine with Happy carrying you?" And Natsu just turns around with the most serious face in the world and says, "Happy's my friend. He's not a mode of transportation." And that line just cracked me up, especially the delivery of Todd Haberkorn in the dub. I just love that line. Now, the thing that I didn't like about the first 2 episodes of Fairy Tail is the narrator. And it's actually funny because I've already kind of compared this to My Hero Academia, so it's kind of similar in that sense. In Fairy Tail, we have this narrator that basically explains everything, and I'm fine with a narrator explaining, we have different guilds, this one's higher up, all these ones are lower. That's fine. I like that the narrator gives some world building. But in one of the episodes that I watched, Lucy is just sitting on a bench reading Sorcerer Weekly, and the narrator says, "Sorcerer Weekly is a magazine where big time sorcerers are in." And I'm just thinking, really? You didn't need to mention that. I could have gone my whole life without worrying about what Sorcerer Weekly is. But the reason that I say it's similar to Academia in that sense is because at the start of every episode of Academia, the instant you see an important character on screen, it has their name, their quirk, and what their quirk does, even if it blocks the view of the screen. And I just never liked that from Academia. It would basically be like if every episode of Pokemon started out saying, "Ash Ketchum is a 10-year-old boy. He is traveling around the Pokemon region to become the greatest Pokemon master of all time." It's just like, we get it. We know what their quirks are. We know these characters. Why do you need to explain what their quirks are at the start of every episode? But that's all I have to say about Fairy Tail and Academia to an extent. I really like Fairy Tail. This first episode was kind of cool, but there's so many episodes, I'm not going to be able to catch up with it, especially with all the other stuff I have to do. But I do know that Fairy Tail is actually finishing up, so it's probably been on for, I would say at least, maybe close to a decade. I don't remember when it came out, so anybody that does know, you'll have to let me know. So I find that cool that I'm discussing the start of Fairy Tail now, right when it's finishing. But the next anime I am going to discuss is Caligula. And my goodness, where do I even get started with this? First of all, I think it might have been this one. Somebody suggested it to me, and I said, okay, I'll check it out. And I want to say it was Caligula that one of my subscribers left a big explanation about what Caligula is about. And at first when I saw that, I'm thinking, I'm gonna find out what the plot of the show is when I watch it, so I appreciate the effort, but I'll be able to find it out. And after watching the first 2 episodes, I have to say, I'm kind of glad that they gave me a description of what the show is about, because I don't even know where to start with this thing. The only thing I can think to compare it to is Gakko Gurashi. The first part of the episode starts off calm, peaceful, and then everything goes to crap at the end of the first episode. In Gakko Gurashi, we find out that zombies have invaded, they're outside of the school, and Caligula, everything goes wild. I honestly don't know what I can discuss about this. From what I understand, this is based off of a video game called the Caligula Effect, which, not gonna lie, I prefer the show to be called the Caligula Effect, but I guess Caligula is shorter to say. How many times can I say Caligula in this episode? but I'm going to do my best to try and remember what happened and try and explain the plot as best that I can remember. So, there's this character called Mew, who is a famous singer, but also real at the same time. She's basically being influenced by this other person, and all these people have like blurry faces or whatever, except for a couple of like the main character, main female character, a bunch of other people. There's a lot of philosophy and stuff involved in it, which honestly took me out of it for a bit, because this main character dude, I can't remember what his name is right now because I didn't write it down, but basically he's that dude in your social circle that when you're hanging out in high school, they're walking home from school and one dude says, "I had fun in school today, I'm really happy," and the dude's just like, "What exactly is happy? How do you know how you are happy? Are you pretending to be happy or are you actually happy?" And he's basically he basically downed the mood. Obviously that's not in every circumstance, because if there's somebody like that in real life that's always thinking philosophical, not gonna down on them or whatever, but it's just like, dude, we're just having a normal conversation here and you throw in your philosophy stuff. One thing to consider before I go any further is I'm not that big of a fan of philosophy or psychology or anything like that, so this show is probably not entirely in my wheelhouse. Especially when you have this guy who has a small little chibi partner that's more or less a representation of Navi, and he's basically trying to stop this person who's controlling Mew, and it's basically just like, we could explain the plot to you, but we don't want to. The first episode and starting into the second episode was just so confusing to me. I wasn't sure what was going on. Although with all that being said, there is one good thing I can, well, two good things I can say about it. First of all, the animation is really good. The animation is kind of off-putting for me at first, but I really liked it. I really warmed up to it by the end of the first episode. And the second thing, Mew's song, I believe it's officially called Mew's Song. It played at the end of the first episode where everything went to crap when the graduation ceremony was happening. I'm probably playing it in the background right now as I speak. I absolutely love that song. I'm not sure what it is. Honestly, I think it's just one of those songs that you hear once and it just sticks in your ear like an earworm. It's basically one of those songs that you hear once and it's stuck in your head for the rest of the week. And I'm not upset with that because Mew's song is so good. I'm assuming that it's sung by the same person who voices Mew in the show, but I absolutely love Mew's song. I honestly can't remember what the opening or ending sound like right now, mainly because I'm more focused on Mew's song, but I guess they're okay. I can't remember anything bad about the opening or ending, but I can't remember anything good, so I guess that's something. And finally, I am going to discuss Gundam Build Divers. And let me just point out, in Caligula and Gundam Build Divers, there was a scene where a female character says, "Help me." 2 shows in a row where a female character says, "Help me." There's no way that's a coincidence. But I can't really give much of a summary about Divers. It's basically a Gundam anime. I've never really watched a Gundam anime, but this is exactly how I imagined that it would be. For starters, what I liked, I really love the opening. I don't know what it is. I've always loved those anime openings where they have a rock beat and then just go into a random rap solo. That's probably why I like Back On the band so much. Now, the one thing that I can say about the concept of the show, even though it's basically a show about selling a product like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh!, at least it goes into detail on buying the product. Because the 2 main characters are basically out and they're picking up their Gundams and stuff like that. I like how they actually dive into actually more or less breaking the fourth wall, because in Yu-Gi-Oh! You very rarely see people buy packs of cards. The only time in the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Was probably in the episode when Duke Devlin was introduced and he dueled Joey. Outside of that, everybody still has their same cards except for their plot device cards. And finally, even though I mentioned this already, I do like the rock soundtrack. Even in the episode, I'm pretty sure there were a couple of rock tracks, and I really like that. Now, the things that I didn't like about it, like I mentioned before, this is my first time watching anything Gundam. So, that can be good in the sense that I have nothing to balance it off of, but that's also bad because I have really nothing else to compare it to. The second thing that I wasn't a fan of is that the show is very, very obviously targeting kids. Because in episode 1, they're out buying their Gundam, they're gonna play it on the computer or whatever, and the person that works there is just like, okay, pick out your Gundam, how long do you want to play? And the one kid says, well, we'll play for like 2 hours, because we have to go home and do our homework. And then the worker there says, that's great! Homework is always important! Do your homework, kids! That line was just like, really? You could have made it in a way that's not super obvious that they're straight talking to the kids right there. They might as well just walked up to the camera and said, do your homework right now, kids. Now this last one, it's kind of a minor nitpick, but I would have preferred it if the main character was ready to give up in his first Gunpla battle, and the girl that was there convinced him not to. Because in every other anime that I watch, like Fairy Tail, My Hero Academia, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, One Piece, even shows that I haven't watched, one trait from the main character is always, I'm never gonna give up, that's how I'm gonna win. I would have liked it if the main character was just like, maybe he's right, maybe I can't win, maybe I should just give up now. And the girl's just like, no, you can't give up, you have to do this. Because there wasn't even a moment of doubt that he was gonna give up. Again, it's a minor nitpick, but that's how I felt. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Let's Talk Anime. I'm already roughly working on the next episode. So far, I'm planning on discussing... 1 minute while I pull it up. So far, I'm planning to discuss Super Dragon Ball Heroes and Vivid Strike. But I still have to watch the final one to fill out the 3-episode basis that I made up. But in the meantime, on the topic of requests, make sure that if you have anything that you want me to talk about, you can either leave it to discuss in Let's Talk Anime, or you can have it be discussed in my animated discussion series. Either one really works. Animated discussions, I go more in detail on a certain topic, so if you want me to talk about it in more depth, then you can do it there. But make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed, and subscribe so you don't miss any other videos. This has been like the 4th video that I've recorded in a row, so I am going to take a break, but I will see you next time. Momentai.
大体エスカで360日分の学びをカバンに詰め込んでいつもみたい